Okay, today we're working on a 1999 Infiniti QX4 with a RE4 RO1A transmission that when you first put it in gear it moves for a little while and then it quits. It stops moving. And my assumption is that the filter's clogged because the transmission has already been rebuilt, and I believe that they didn't clean out the cooler properly. Alright, we're about to drop the pan to see if there's any debris in the pan, and so we can make an accurate diagnosis on this. Seeing that the transmission was already built, I want to do a pan inspection and see if the filter's plugged. I'm going to get the flashlight. Okay, now that the pan's down, we got contamination in the pan. But again, I'm not sure because they never replaced the cooler, and on this vehicle you're supposed to bypass the radiator when you rebuild the transmission. So I'm not sure if this material is from the new transmission or the old one. And as I expected, the filter is actually plugged very, very good, and that restricts the flow when the transmission, the pump sucks the fluid up through the filter here, the opening here, and there's a micro screen inside it. When that screen is plugged, the pump starts sucking air and starts whining, and that's why we're hearing material in there. All right. So it's exactly what I thought that it was. So now we're going to replace the filter. We're going to clean the pan out, and we're going to place an external cooler on it and take it for a test drive. Careful not to cut your fingers on the filter. This part of the filter is razor sharp. They make it out of stamped sheet metal. It's got the O-ring on it. You always have to have a seal on the filter. You can't suck any air. This is what's called your main control assembly here. This has solenoids on it. Here's one here, and the other ones are on the upside of the valve body. Get the new filter. Here we get the new filter. As you can see, the micro screen in there is very clean. Here's the filter. And again, be very careful with this part of the filter, because that will cut your finger in a second. You know, believe it or not, even though you see all this debris in there, I've had them like that before and have done something like this, and the train's lasted forever. If God is on your side, then, well, the transmission gods, as we call them. But that could be after we're sucking fluid. It'll do that sometimes. The torque converters really take a beating when they suck air, and that's when the pump starts whining. So this metal in here, it may or may not be from the old transmission, and that's what we're going to see here. We got pieces of the clutch material now that I dumped all the fluid out. Maybe the torque converter or maybe one of the clutches, I'm not sure yet, but this is not a good sign. They're pretty big pieces. This is probably not from the old trans, so what we're going to have to do is just clean it out and cross our fingers. Nice clean. and we'll give it the best chance it's got of survival. Here I'm starting all the bolts so that we don't have anything cross threading. Careful not to over tighten these little 6mm bolts, they strip right out. But if you happen to strip one out, you can either put a Healy coil in it or put a self-tapping screw in there. It's fine. We have the pan back up and the new filter in there. We are going to put an external cooler on it, but I just want to make sure that the transmission survived. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill it up with fluid. We're going to clean this area off a little bit and see what we got. Transmission seems to be okay. It's not slipping, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put an external cooler on it to bypass the radiator, because I believe that that's what the original problem was. Alright, so here we go. We're installing the external cooler, which is not a very difficult installation, but there are a couple obstacles. One is where do you tie it off? That'll give us a couple inches. So here you see we got the radiator pried open. Which is not recommended on an old radiator. And we could take more stuff off. We can remove the horns and all this other stuff, but these coolers are not, basically what this cooler is a 3/8 pipe that just has some turns in it. There's nothing inside here. There's no restriction at all. It's wide open, the whole thing. And these are just coils. Very small pieces of sheet aluminum. So you don't really have to be too careful installing it at this point. Okay, so now we got the top one installed. That's our extra. Okay, there is our mounting of our external transmission. I actually was about to cut these lines, but if somebody wants to, if they have the money to really do it right, you could buy a new radiator and run it through the radiator and through the external cooler. So I don't want to cut the guy's hoses, because these are molded hoses and they fit perfect and they're in really good shape still. They're soft. You're welcome, Fabian. This radiator is off limits, or what do they call it? Condemned. You know, we could get really fancy. We could get really fancy with these hoses on this side. They run, they're not tight, or, you know, they're the perfect length, but we could drill holes and get clamps, but we're not doing that today because we don't have the means to go to the auto parts store. Let's see. Just do. Now to complete it, I just put a couple zip ties, design a little spacer. I could run them all the way up and down the hose, but it's not necessary. That's just to keep them flat, you know, and from moving around. Here we are, driving it. So far, so good. Check in the lights on. Just your average test drive. Check reverse application. That's full throttle. That's pretty good. That's very good. Well, that completes the that concludes the fucking test drive.